I'm going to show you one way to paint a Hakea leaf. Hakea is a beautiful Australian native. This is Hakea lorina or pincushion Hakea, and it has these beautiful longitudinal veins which are very pretty but can be difficult to paint. There's always more than one way to do these things, but in this video I'm going to show you how to tackle a Hakea leaf using masking fluid. This is the basic equipment I'll be using. I use PBO drawing gum, as sometimes I do dilute it just with a little bit of water, so you can have a practice with that. It can give you a finer line. I'm also using a calligraphy pen. This calligraphy nib is a Hunt Globe bowl pointed. I think the important part is the bowl pointed so that it's not too sharp and won't scratch your paper too much. Then I have a couple of synthetic watercolour brushes, a size 6 and a size 0 I'm using on this occasion. Of course you can use sable as well. And my paints are Winsor & Newton watercolours in tube. I've drawn my leaf in 2H pencil, and now I'm going to add the masking fluid. I have diluted it with a little bit of water and just put it in a separate container. I'm testing it on a different sheet of paper first. Sometimes it can come out quite thick and blobby. You might need to waste a little bit just to make sure that you get it right. Turn the paper to whatever direction works for you, and I'm just tracing over those pencil lines, trying to be careful and trying not to get them too thick. The veins do taper out at the top and at the bottom of the leaf. There is going to be some touching up afterwards, so don't panic if you do make a bit of a mistake with your masking fluid. Once you finish with the masking fluid, I would say leave it for at least half an hour to dry. You don't want it to be wet when you start applying the paint. But on the other hand, don't leave it too long. You really want to get that off there probably within 12 to 24 hours. There's a chance that it could react with the fibres in the paper. It might become difficult to remove and affect the surface of the paper. So make sure you've got time to finish the job. The reason I'm using masking fluid is so that I can do a nice big wash on the leaf. If I had to brush each of these sections on separately, it would just feel really stiff. So I want to be able to get a nice watery wash, and I'm going to do several layers while I've got the masking fluid on there, and I'll do more once I remove the masking fluid. So I've started by mixing Winsor lemon with some French ultramarine. You can do some practices, get your colour just right. There are going to be several layers here, so it doesn't matter if it's a little bit off. I can add a more yellowy green or a more bluey colour over the top, and I can also just leave a little bit more blue in the highlights. So start off with quite a watery wash. I am going to play with this a little bit. I don't recommend playing with the wet area too much generally, but I am really trying to add some darks in. It seems that it will look dark when it's wet, and then when it dries you come back and think, oh, I thought I made that darker. So I am just trying to add a little bit more dark towards the tip of the leaf, and I'm just dropping that colour in because that leaf is all still wet at the moment. But then you get to the point where you just need to stop and let it dry completely before you do anything else to it. So I have let that leaf dry now for probably 10 or 15 minutes. You just want to make sure that the surface doesn't get disturbed once you start wetting it again. And I'm still using a watery mix, but it's a little more pigment and a little less water, so it's a bit thicker, but it'll still go on and nice and smoothly and will blend well. So masking fluid still on there, just going over basically the same area again, but I'm just trying to add a little more dark here and there. Still using the same colours, although you can add a little bit of a red, like a burnt sienna, to add a little bit more earthiness to this, native sort of green. You can keep building up these layers. For me, I'm trying to be a little bit quicker than I usually am. So once this layer is dry, I'm going to take off the masking fluid and then we'll do a little bit more adjusting after that. Time to remove the masking fluid. You can actually remove it with your fingers, but it's probably not great for your fingers or for the paper. So I'm going to use a white plastic eraser. It does make a mess, so just try and get rid of all that off your painting. So you can see now the veins that are left behind are very white and very stark. So they do need to be made to look more natural. They need to blend in more. Both ends are too thick, and some of the lines are also a little bit wobbly. So there's a bit of fixing up to do. The veins are kind of a yellowy green, a limey sort of green. So I'm going over pretty much the whole leaf now with a yellowy green. So it'll cover the leaf and get some colour into those veins. Now I'm still using that same colour mix, but it's a little more pigment now, and I'm trying to make some of the veins just a little thinner. So yeah, this is more getting towards a dry brush, just kind of doing some tidying up. And obviously I'm using my fine brush. You can go even finer. And towards the tip of the leaf, those veins really kind of fade out, or some of them do. The midrib is the strongest one, so I'm trying to leave it as quite, the thickest and the most prominent. But yeah, it just looks a bit more natural if the other ones are fading out at either end of the leaf. This whole process may be too fiddly for some people, and I understand that. And as I said, there are definitely other ways of doing it. But if you're a purist and you don't want to be using white paint to do your veins, which sometimes they can look a little bit, how shall I say, a little bit fake, a little bit too obvious, this is just another option. Now we're really getting to the fine tuning. There's often like a little bit of a brown tip. You can mix a brownish colour by using French ultramarine and burnt sienna, or even just mixing some burnt sienna in with that green that you already had. You can add a little bit of that sort of shadowy green here and there, just, you know, trying to make it realistic, give it a little bit of life with some light and some shade. I've also added a little bit of burnt sienna to the very end of the petiole, just where it's coming off the stem there, which the stem will have a lot of burnt sienna in it. You can see that this is part of a larger painting, which is in progress. And if you look at the larger section, you can see that all of those leaves are in varying stages of completion. So there's still definitely some more work to do on all of those. But just remember to include some variation, also probably some little imperfections, little bits where some insects might have been having a bit of a chew, and usually the tips of the leaves aren't perfect. Just keep working until you're satisfied. So I hope that's given you some insight into how you can use masking fluid. I don't use it a lot, but there are occasions when it's invaluable. And if you'd like to see more little clips like this of different techniques, let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching.